Welcome to the latest edition of Until Saturday, live reaction edition to the USC win over Colorado. It looked like it might be 63-20 in the first half, and then it turned out that there was a game-deciding onside kick at the end that could have, if Colorado would have gotten the ball back, could have evened the score. So, Chris, last week Colorado got its butt kicked by Oregon. This week it looked like they were headed down that same path. They were resilient at home. They did not have Travis Hunter. And they played a pretty good game. I thought that was a success. What was your main takeaway from that?
Oh, yeah, absolute success for Colorado. I mean, you come in as a 21.5-point underdog once again. You don't have Travis Hunter, and you come back and take it to the end. I come away with this game with two takeaways. One, Colorado has probably found a guy in Ari and Miller at wide receiver. And two, USC's defense is going to cost its chances at the playoff again this year, I think.
It is funny because this is supposed to be a reaction, I think, to Colorado and, who they are and what they are. And I thought there was a chance that if they would have lost 59 or to nothing or 60-14 or whatever, and it was another game that kind of felt like the dismantling that they suffered last week against Oregon, that might have let the air out of the hype balloon a little bit. We would have known who they were specifically, and, them getting beaten up by the two best teams in the Pac-12 doesn't make for a great storyline. But I thought that they did more than enough today to continue being appointment television. I thought that they did a very good job of bouncing back a week after what happened at Oregon could have been so demoralizing for the hype train that they were already on. And I found that my main takeaway from this game is that USC is just not a serious football program right now. Until they learn how to play defense, and I know at the beginning of the year, I criticized them for their defense. And everybody was saying they rotated everybody and blah, 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 blah. But it's I don't know if it was because they were tired. I don't know if it was because, they had a comfortable lead and people stopped playing hard, but it just was not a pretty performance. Colorado was driving down the field very, very, very easily. They had 564 total yards. They were 9 of 18 in third down efficiency, 371 yards passing, 193 yards rushing. It just didn't seem like Colorado had a hard time taking anything that it wanted in this game.
Yeah, and remember, speaking of USC's defense, by the way, a week ago, they gave up 28 to Arizona State, which had just been shut out by Fresno State the week prior. Now you got a Colorado team that scored 6 points against Oregon. Now they're scoring 41 against USC. That is a problem. And if you're Colorado, again, coming out of this game now, your next two games are Arizona State and Stanford. And I think we would feel coming out of this game, they got a good shot to win those games. And if you win those games and get to 5 wins, you're setting yourself up if you can pull one more to get to a bowl game. So, yeah, it felt like in that first half, everybody was like, all right, blooms off the rose for Colorado. They're what we thought they were at the beginning. This team isn't any good this year. And then the way the rest of the game plays out, it's well, this is a team we're still going to be paying attention to.
Yeah, well, I don't want people to get a misunderstanding of what we're talking about here. Fareed in the comments said, I'm sorry, that game wasn't even close, shaking my head. We watched the game. We're very aware that Colorado wasn't really in a position to win. We have eyes too. You're not the only one who watched it. And that's not necessarily the point here. The point here is that USC says the best player in college football leading its offense. It was scoring at will for the entire first half. It seemed like they were on pace for 100 points at one point. And then Colorado did a very good job of stopping the bleeding and getting back into the football game at the end.
Yes.
And
they made defensive adjustments in that game. They made some good defensive adjustments to slow down the passing game and doing some other things. They do deserve a little credit for getting back into it.
And it doesn't mean that we thought that USC was going to lose. I didn't think they were going to lose at any point in the game.
Right.
But Colorado did a really good job of playing resilient football. And it's my understanding, too, that they were also without a few key defenders. So, it's not – I think it's a very good job. And it makes me want to continue to watch. And Colorado has an interesting part of their schedule coming up, like you said. But who else is a pretty interesting part of their schedule coming up? USC. USC plays Arizona next week, and Arizona's offense can score if you have a crappy defense. And then they have Notre Dame, Utah, Cal, Washington, Oregon, UCLA all in a row. Like, I don't know if there's any possible way that you could have watched the Colorado game on Saturday afternoon and thought to yourself, this USC team is running the table this year.
No, my question is, do you see them dropping 2 or more? Does it feel more likely that they drop 2 with those? We'll see if Cam Rising plays for Utah. That's kind of a big deal. But between Notre Dame, Oregon, Washington, UCLA, like some tough games coming up. And if you can't keep Colorado in check, that doesn't have Travis Hunter, then what are you doing? So I don't know. My big takeaway from this game is that Lincoln Riley is not serious about defense. Like we thought that after the Tulane game, after the Utah games last year, it's like, all right, are they going to get serious about this? And after the last 2 weeks, they clearly have not. Like they struggled with Arizona State and Colorado, which should be 2 of the bottom teams in this conference.
Well, my question for you, question for you is it possible for USC to get serious about defense without changing its defensive coordinator? And you might be able to think that that's the case. Andy Staples and I covered the Pac-12 championship game last year. We were sitting next to each other the entire game. And he wrote a column after that game that USC had to get serious about defense in the offseason if it wanted to be taken seriously. And my understanding of that was find a coordinator that will teach the fundamentals of tackling, practice a little bit more intensely, come up with a scheme that can get the most out of its players, and actually just have an average defense. Like, that's all they need, right? Like, I don't think they need to have the 2000 Ravens back there. They just need to have a team that can get a stop. And there are certain times when you're watching USC this year and certainly last year where USC just can't get stops, no matter who they're playing. They cannot get stopped. And this has been a theme about Lincoln Riley throughout his entire career. And I know they had a few years at Oklahoma where they had some pretty good defenses. But how on the West Coast are you going to do this over and over and over again and then go expect to beat Georgia or expect to make the playoff and beat Alabama or whoever it is that they're going to get matched up against? It's just going to be another – you know what it is going to be if that ever happens? It's going to be a rerun of the LSU game when they played Oklahoma during the Joe Burrow year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, when are you ever going to have a team that fields a defense that takes us seriously about whether or not you can win a title? Because it's a damn waste of offensive talent.
Like, you would think, like, if you have had Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, 2 years of Caleb Williams, and you potentially you will have never played for a national championship, like how often do you think you're going to have that generational quarterback without it changing? You have to have just like you said, just an average defense to get there. And I don't know, like at this point, like it's on the head coach. Like it's not simply, oh, the defense coordinator is not practicing tackling enough. You know, like they've got good enough talent on their recruiting rankings that they recruit enough guys not to be this bad. Like, again, we're not asking top 5 defense here. It's clearly just like philosophical with just kind of how that program runs, that it's not something that is taken seriously to that level, or it would have been fixed by now. That's why you're paid $9.5 million to do that. So I'd be very concerned right now.
And the thing that's really, really difficult about USC too is that they're playing a bunch of teams in succession here the second half of their season that can beat you by scoring a ton of points on them, and they all do it in very different ways. Like it's not a versatile defense either. So that is, you know, we're talking about a team now that's 5-0. I think they've scored at least 40 points in all of their games, 50 in 2 out of the 6 and 60 in 1. And it's just like, okay, well, we know what we're going to get out of that. But when they play a really good team that has a pretty good defense and they're only able to score 38, they're going to lose, you know, and they might lose twice. So that's that. So I think that the number one thing, I guess, from this game is Colorado's perception nationally. And I think that people will continue to buy into what they can do. I think that the fact that they didn't get their doors blown off by USC this week, you know, I think continues to have some intrigue there. They play Arizona State, they play Stanford, UCLA, Oregon State's a tough game, Arizona, and Washington State. Like, I think that they could probably, you know, reasonably get to 6 to 8 wins this year. And if they do, then he's done a remarkable job, Deion Sanders, that is. So, very entertaining game, too. Like, that's the thing. Colorado aside from the Oregon game, plays in very entertaining games, and I cannot wait more so than anything for Travis Hunter to come back so I can watch him play football.
Yeah, look, Colorado now at this point better than we expected, and this game is going to do massive TV ratings again. So like people are going to keep talking about Colorado because it's going to get good viewership. And look, they competed with USC at least. And if you beat Arizona State and Stanford like you probably should, then you're sitting at what 5-2 at that point. So like, and if you can beat Arizona a couple weeks after that, or UCLA or something like that, like I don't think 8 wins is going to happen. I think 6 is very possible. And if you do 6 and get to a bowl game, and you have all those bowl games fighting and clawing to try to get Colorado in their game, like that's going to be a big thing. So our perceptions probably changed from first half to second half about this Colorado team. It's set up now where there's a path to 6 wins, which I absolutely did not think was possible coming into this season. So no, it's not a top 15 team. I know I had them ranked there one time. I know they're not a top 25 team, but they're a fun team and they're an interesting team and they're
a functional
good offensive team. Yeah, it's a
functional team. During
what
a
did
time
you think?
In which Colorado like wasn't a functional program or existence at all.
As long as they stop running the ball in 2-minute drills up the middle 3 times on that last drive.
Yeah, not sure what's going on there. Well, the funniest thing about it too is that like anybody who's followed Sean Lewis's career at any point before he got to Colorado knows that all he wants to do is run as many plays as possible. So like it just kind of seemed out of character to me a little bit too. And I don't know if they just kind of resigned themselves to the notion that they were going to have to play for an onside kick there or what that all was, but I was kind of confused by that.
Yeah, they did it 3 times. The crowd started booing. Like they're in the 2-minute drill, down 14, trying to come back, and they're getting booed. I had some Kent State fans reach out and be like, "Well, this is why his record wasn't better at Kent State." So I don't know if in 2-minute he wasn't good at Kent State or whatever. But overall, I thought he called a good game. Like even from the beginning, clearly the plan was quick passes. We're not going to be able to block this USC defensive front. And Shedeur Sanders started off like 8 for 8 passing. It was like for 40 yards or whatever, but it was a good strategy in a difficult situation. And then they had to open it up more as they got down. Shedeur took some hits, took some sacks, but he was able to hit those big plays. And again, dude, Omarion Miller did not have a single catch coming into this game. Former 4-star recruit, true freshman player.
It was everywhere in this game.
Dude was everywhere, and he also had a great catch on a 2-point conversion that didn't count because he stepped out of bounds. But like, whoa, that guy came out of nowhere, and this may be a dude to kind of watch on this team going forward.
Yeah, I mean the skill position talent too, and especially too. It's like if Deion Sanders can figure out a way to build up his lines, like I just don't envision a scenario where Colorado, while he's the head coach, is not going to have elite skill position players. It's like, because if you're a skill position player, like that's who you want to play for. So, yeah, no, I thought that was a really fun game. I thought that Colorado did everything that they needed to do to bounce back from Oregon. Obviously, Colorado fans would have liked them to have a win, but playing a close, competitive game in the fourth quarter with USC, I think, is all you can really ask for from a team that couldn't beat itself out of a paper bag a year ago. And I think right now, all these comments in the live chat here, Lincoln Riley's never going to win a national championship. We'll certainly be sure to unpack that on the live show this evening when we do the Saturday reaction of the entire day. Until then, enjoy a good 6-7 more hours of college football, and we'll talk to you tonight. Thanks so much.